On Sunday evenings this month, we're going through a short series entitled Active Encouragement, Building a Culture of Good Works. And our theme verse for this, the one that was read for us, Hebrews 10:24, and let us consider how to stir up one another to love and good works. Taking this theme verse, I really wanted to give the series the title, Stirred Not Shaken. But Clay said that'd be inappropriate, so I didn't do that. But the idea of being stirred up and the fact that we're supposed to stir one another up. There are three objectives to this series. First of all, to encourage. It's a series about encouragement and how to build a culture of encouragement in our congregation, and then to equip. Not just to encourage people, but to show them, to help them, to provide them with what they need to be the men and women of faith that they are called to be, and then to engage. Not just talk about this, but actually be connected with one another. The reality that this is not just theoretical, but that we are called to be the family of God. We're called to be part of one another's lives. And that's an essential aspect of this. So first of all, the idea of motivating with meaning. We need to have purpose. There needs to be a plan. There needs to be reality in what we are doing. 1 John 3:18, little children, let us not love in word or talk, but in deed and in truth. You know, the saying goes, talk is cheap. It really is. It's one thing to talk about love and good works and have lofty aspirations, but what are we doing? And what are we helping others to do? Where is the reality of it? Where's the purpose within what we are doing? And then we need to have a plan. Philippians 2 verse 4, let each of you look not only to his own interest, but also to the interest of others. The interest not only of yourself, but of others in the Lord's church. What is it that people need? Do they need a word of encouragement to keep from being crestfallen? Do they need some instruction in order to know how to more effectively proceed in the path that God has set out? What do they need? And with a moment's reflection, we can come up with some very real needs that are evident among our brothers and sisters. And the question then, what is our plan? What are we going to do about the things that we see? What are the interests of others? What is in their best interest? And how do we look to these things as the apostle commands? And then perseverance. You know, this is not a once and done kind of thing. It's a lifetime of commitment. The old story of the older couple sitting there. The wife looks over at her husband and says, well, you never say that you love me. And he said, well, I told you 40 years ago and I haven't changed my mind. Well, we've got to bear in mind that it's not a matter of simply doing one good thing or finding one kind word or equipping someone on one occasion, but it is a lifetime of service. Just in the same way that when you're in a family, you're in it for life. In the Lord's church, it is a continual commitment to do what we can to be of benefit to our brothers and sisters. It requires perseverance. Hebrews 3:13, but encourage one another every day as long as it is called today. I love the way the author of Hebrews has framed this. Encourage one another every day, and then he adds, as long as it's called today. So you wake up and say, is this a day I'm supposed to be providing encouragement? Well, the answer to that is, well, is it today? As long as it's called today, you should be encouraging one another. And there's a tremendous need for this because the world is filled with discouragement. There's a lot of darkness. There's a lot of sorrow. There are a lot of problems. We all have problems, and every member of the church carries his or her own burden. And we need to be helping one another along. We're supposed to be stirring one another up. And that's the idea of providing a nudge, a gentle push. But we need to do this with patience. A patient approach is essential because people are not going to change immediately. And you and I don't either. God has been very patient with us, and we need to be patient with our brothers and sisters. Our congregation is never going to be perfect. It is always going to be in need of enhancement. And no member of this congregation is ever going to be perfect. Each one of us is going to need to make changes. We need the encouragement of the congregation as a whole to help each of us along. And we need to be patient with one another. Ephesians 4, verse 2, with all humility and gentleness, with patience, bearing with one another in love. We need humility. We need to recognize that I do not have my life where it needs to be, and neither do you. We all need the grace of God, and we all need the encouragement of the church to do better. There needs to be humility, and out of humility there comes gentleness, not a harshness, not a very heavy-handed approach, but rather with patience, bearing with one another in love. And it requires a positive attitude. Whenever we approach one another, especially whenever we are encouraging change, we need to be expecting good outcomes rather than anticipating a negative interaction. Romans 12, verse 12, rejoice in hope. Be patient in tribulation. Be constant in prayer. Rejoice in hope. We have hope. We have an assurance that God is at work. And because of that, we can rejoice. There are so many good things that are happening and can happen within the Lord's church. Rather than staying fixated on the things that may be lacking or problematic, let's lay hold on the good things and with a positive outlook, build for a better tomorrow. And we need to offer practical assistance. It's all very good to talk about the grand and glorious things that the church can do, and to talk about the blessings of God in an individual's life, but what are we doing to help each one of us to place that into practice in our lives? 1 John 3:18, Let us not love in word or talk, but in deed and in truth. Not just talking about it, but in reality and in the truth. We need to make people a priority. And this is something that, especially whenever you begin talking with religious professionals, this is a problem. Because far too often people become fixated on programs. They begin looking at various congregations and asking themselves, well, what programmatically are they doing? And then they attempt to replicate those programs without looking at the heart that may be behind it. People need to be prioritized over programs. Romans 12, verse 9. Let love be genuine. Abhor what is evil, hold fast to what is good. We need to be very careful and never permit the love that we have in the church to become ritualistic and plastic. We need to avoid that which is artificial. Love needs to be genuine. And love which is genuine lasts. Love which is genuine is there not only in the good times, but in times of sorrow. Love that is genuine is what people need when the hard times of life will come. If we want to stir one another up, if we want to encourage one another, if we want this congregation to be more what it can be, there needs to be an authenticity. Not just a veneer, but a deeply rooted love, holding fast to what is good. And it involves picking up the powerless. The Bible places a great emphasis on meeting the needs of those who are cast down. And in the church, we need to be very careful that we do not forget that everyone is in need at one time or another, and some people have deeper needs than others. Galatians 6, verse 2, bear one another's burdens and so fulfill the law of Christ. When we think about the law of Christ, the law of love, it is put into practice whenever we bear one another's burdens. Burdens come in different shapes and sizes. Sometimes there's a financial burden. By the way, in the New Testament, we read a great deal about the sharing of resources and helping those who are economically disadvantaged. Burdens can be a matter of social problems. People who are isolated, people who are cut off from society. Burdens can be a matter of health and aging, and especially in our society, where extended families often live at great distances. Whenever people are facing the problems of life that come with age, the Lord's church needs to be at the forefront of reaching out and providing the help that is needed to bear one another's burdens. But whatever the burden may be, we need in the church to be looking and being very intentional, asking ourselves, what can I do to be of help? How can I make my brother or sister's life easier? What can I do for them? And maybe it's as simple as being present, being there. Perhaps it is a matter of finding ways to organize the congregation as a whole to reach out and to provide some form of assistance. But we need to be bearing one another's burdens. And then we do need to be present. Hebrews 10:13, do not neglect to do good and to share what you have, for such sacrifices are pleasing to God. What is it that you have that you can share? Well, obviously, there are material goods that we can share. We can prepare a meal for someone. We can help financially whenever there is such a need. But you know, the greatest need that many people have is simply the investment of time. You know, time is the most non-renewable resource. None of us can get more time. We only have the moment. And whenever you share your time with someone, you've shared your very life with them. You have provided for them something of great value, and you have shown that you value them. That's why it's so important, whenever there has been a death in the family, to be mindful of going to visitation, of dropping a note of encouragement, of investing some time. This is why whenever people are alone and shut in, to make it a point to invest in their lives, just paying a visit, making a phone call, doing this good, sharing your life with them, because this is a sacrifice that is pleasing to God. You know, under the old law, there were a wide range of sacrifices. We think in terms of the animal sacrifices, the blood sacrifices that were for atonement of sin, but you know, that was actually a very small amount of the sacrifices that were offered. There were drink offerings, there were grain offerings, there were all kinds of offerings that were given not for the atonement of sin, but out of obedience, out of love, out of joy, out of gratitude to God. Well, there's only one sacrifice for sin in the new covenant, and that's Jesus Christ. And that sacrifice was once for all time, never to be repeated. But we still offer our lives as a sacrifice to God, not to atone for sin, but in thanksgiving, in appreciation. And the sacrifice that we offer to God is in the good service that we render to other people. Jesus himself said that when you've done a good deed, even to the least of his brethren, you have done it for him. God has designed us to be agents of encouragement, not critics of one another. When we stir each other to love and good works, we reflect the heart of Christ to a watching world. This, by the way, has tremendous evangelistic opportunities. Whenever we are loving each other as we ought and encouraging one another in love and good works, the world is going to notice. To be an agent of encouragement, I want to give you these takeaways. First of all, to lean in. Secondly, to live out. And third, to look up. Each in turn, to lean in. Lean into your church family and community. Don't stand on the sidelines. We need each other's prayers, presence, and partnership. This is not an organization where you drift in and drift out. Every person is called to be engaged, to be part of this family. And as we invest ourselves in this family that is gathered in this place, we are going to be blessed, even as we bring a blessing to others. So don't stay on the sidelines. Get in the midst of it. Find ways to be involved. Lean in. And then to live out. Put faith into action by serving others. A transformed heart is best seen in tangible compassion and consistent good works. James, in his epistle, makes it very clear that to just talk a good game is worth nothing, but you need to have good works. If you say to someone who is hungry and cold, be warmed and filled, what good is it? It's of no good at all. But whenever you actually do tangible good, whenever you actually make a difference in people's lives, that is where the love of Christ is being shown. I've told you before something that I deeply admire with Bill Phillis. He's an elder, or former elder. He has stepped down from that position at the Alkire Road congregation. He's the chair of the board at Fort Hill Christian Youth Camp. And he's had a practice throughout his entire life that before he goes to bed at night, he asks himself a simple question. What difference have I made in someone's life today? What good have I done for someone? And in his view, if he cannot give an answer, then that's a wasted day. I think that's a wonderful outlook, to be practical, to think in terms of one thing, even one thing that we do each day that makes someone's life better. Live out the love of Christ as we encourage each other. And then to look up, to recognize that the greatest servant of all and the one that stirs us up to love and good works is the Lord himself. As Christians, he's the one we need to be looking to. And he's the one we commend to everyone. Turn your eyes to Jesus as the ultimate example of sacrificial love. And tonight, if you are not yet a Christian, this is our encouragement to you. If you have never trusted Christ, look to him for salvation and strength. Becoming a Christian is not complicated, but it is profound. Jesus Christ died for you, and he wants you to be part of his family. He wants you to be part of his church. What do you need to know? Well, you need to know one thing. You need to know that Jesus Christ is the Son of God. And if you believe that, then with a statement of that faith, you can be baptized. You can be placed under water, showing the burial of Christ, brought back up to show his resurrection. Your sins will be forgiven. Of all of the things that we could encourage you to do, to look to the Savior is the greatest of all. For Christians, we all need to encourage each other to keep our eyes on Jesus. And if there's anyone here who would like to become a Christian even tonight, we encourage you to step forward as together we stand and sing.